Oh, fasten your seatbelts.
Here it is.
You missed the whole thing.
Didn't miss anything.
The thing before started late, so.
Ladies and gentlemen, how are you enjoying Monsterama so far? This is the Southeast's only classic sci-fi and horror convention. Please give a round of applause for the Star Trek Irregulars. Starting from the far end, you recognize him as the Talaxian Laxeth on Star Trek Voyager, the episode Investigations. Please welcome Jerry Sroka. Zarabeth from the original series episode All Our Yesterdays, Mariette Hartley. Lieutenant Galway from the original series episode The Deadly Years, Beverly Washburn. And we can't forget Teenage Spock from Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, Stephen Manley. So we're going to go down the row, ask a few preliminary questions, and we're going to open up to the audience. What I'm going to do is ask the question. I'll repeat the question so that folks online can hear it.
What?
Down the line, how did you get into Star Trek?
I drove my car there.
Were you cast? Did you request it?
No, I auditioned.
You auditioned for the part?
I made the mistake of getting it, and then I showed up at 4 a.m. and I drove. Anybody heard this yesterday? Because you could fit it.
Yeah.
Evan's story.
Great story.
Tell it again.
Go. Yeah. So I didn't. I never watched Star Trek. I just never did. I watched one episode. They were throwing rocks that were bouncing, and I thought, "What is this?" But I did audition because a job's a job, and I show up at 4 a.m. at Paramount, drive up to the window, and I'm going, "Jerry Sroka for Star Trek." And he says, "Which one?" I said, "There's more than one. We're doing four."
4 in the morning.
Oh, you don't know what you're here for? A paycheck? I don't know why I'm here. And he figured it out. It was Voyager.
Oh, sure.
And got there, went into makeup about 4:15, got out of makeup about 8:15. 4 hours later, my kids said, "You look like Grandma." 2 takes, and I'm out of there. That was
Never to return.
Never to. And that was it. So I don't know why I'm sitting here. Okay?
That works. You're part of the Star Trek family. That's the important thing.
Ah, okay.
Miss Hartley?
What's the question again?
How did you cast for Star Trek? Was there a story
I don't
behind
know.
it?
It was such a weird thing. I come from Connecticut. And
I do too. I'm from New Haven. What part?
I'm Westport.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And knew nothing about TV or. Anyway, I was here suddenly. It was like Alice in Wonderland. You just kind of. I come from Connecticut, and then I'm here with crazy people. Not you guys. The people in the business. And Gene Roddenberry, I guess, needed somebody to play Zarabeth. Oh, God. And I had no idea what the program was or anything. And I arrived, and I have to audition for Gene Roddenberry. And I got the part. I don't know how I got the part. But I stood Spock. That was my job to do. I didn't know what the word "shtuk" meant anyway. And then I married a Jew, and I found out that. And I had to get naked and all of that stuff, and I didn't know how to do that. And act. It was like a skin bathing suit all over my body, from here just to here. What year is this supposed to be? And I still to this day don't know. I know that I was in a cave, and I couldn't get out. Right? That was it. And I stood Spock, and then
Twice?
I don't know. It took a while. And then what happened? Oh, so I became this creature stuck in a cave and couldn't get out. I knew she'd never come out for the rest of her life. I thought, how do you play that? But anyway, I also taught him how to eat meat. I don't know how many people know that Spock never ate meat. He was a vegetarian, not when I was around. No. I tell you, it was, come on, are we going to eat meat again today? Anyway, so it was an interesting and strange experience, which we can talk about later on.
Now I need to clarify something. I can't be the only one growing up thinking that was not your husband. You know what I'm talking about, those Polaroid commercials?
Oh,
Oh.
Did anybody else think James Gardner was her? Oh my God, I loved them.
I didn't think
They were, am I the only one that thought that? I can't be.
it was no. I finally got angry. No, because I was married to a man that wasn't. It was not Rockford. It wasn't. It was a French count, and we had two beautiful children, and everybody thought that they were his children. And I thought, okay, hell with this. And I decided that I was going to make a little T-shirt and put it on my daughter, my new daughter, put it at his doorstep. And on it, it was Winnebago doorstep. And she was going to be put right there. And on this piece of T-shirt was going to be, I am not James Gardner's baby. I couldn't help it. I mean, it was like, stop it already. And then I gave one to my son, who had one that said, I'm not James, I'm not, my father's name is Pat. And then I said, and I'm not, this is James Gardner. So I straightened it out. Yeah, I straightened it out. But yes, everybody thought we were married. I wouldn't have minded it. I think he's true.
Miss Washburn, how did you get into Trek?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us do this little panel. I hope you're all not sick of me by now, because this is my third panel. So probably whatever I have to say you've already heard. But I got cast on Star Trek. It was the second season, and it was the Deadly Years, where I played Lieutenant Arlene Galway, and I died of old age. And did any of you see that episode?
Yeah.
Trekkies and Trekkers are wonderful fans.
We have no mirrors here for a reason. You made that clear in that episode.
I know, they just happened to have a mirror there on the spaceship. That was funny. But I love doing it.
Can you hear back there?
Can you hear me close enough to?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, as some of you have already heard this story, sorry. I went on the audition, and the first thing they asked me is if I was claustrophobic. And at the time, I didn't say anything to them, but I thought to myself, that's an odd question. I didn't know why they were asking me that. But as it turned out, it was because when I die of old age, they had to make me look like I was 100 or whatever. And so they had to make a plaster cast and put it on my face, and I had to breathe through a straw until it dried, and then they made the rubber mask, and then they put that on me, and then they makeup over that, and the gray wig, and everything. And so it was quite tedious. It took 4.5 hours, which is about the same amount of time that it takes me now. But anyway, and then taking it off was another 2.5 hours, because back then they used spirit gum to put it on. So they had to peel it off like really slowly, which kind of hurt. but it was worth it. But I had no idea at the time that all these years later, Star Trek would live on in the hearts of so many people. And I'm just, I just did the one episode, and I died, and I wasn't even wearing a red shirt. Anyway, I'm just happy to have been a part of it, and all the Trekkies and Trekkers are such devoted fans. It's amazing how they know every character and the dialogue and everything, and it's really heartwarming, and so it's always so much fun to meet all of you, and I'm just happy to be here.
Nice. Mr. Manley?
We'll share.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good? Michael French, my dear friend from Retro Blasting, is in the back. My dear friend Matt Green from Scottsdale of Magic Film Company, right over here. We've got some great buddies here today. Some of you may have heard me talk again. I'm sorry if it's... This is my third year doing Monsterama, and they asked me to do panels, so it might be a little bit of a rerun for you guys. I'll try and make it condensed. I'll try. I've been in the business since 1971 and had worked television and some feature films. And I was on a series called The Secrets of Midland Heights that a friend of mine produced. The man who wrote Dallas, David Jacobs. That was my second time working for him. And he had written an episode where my character had lost his mother while he was away on a trip, and the whole town goes to a carnival. And I was a loner, and there was a beautiful woman standing outside of a gypsy fortune-telling tent. And that was played by Zora Lampert. And I remember David coming to me and saying, "Oh my God, I got the woman I wanted. Zora's going to be your fortune teller. You better be on your game, because she's a heavy method actress." And I said, "Oh, okay." I recognized her when I met her. She had gotten an Emmy for a Kojak episode that she did. She had done a lot of theater. I believe she had a Tony for a famous role she had done. And Zora's character was to help me get through the loss of my mom. And it was a beautiful experience. Kind of fell in love with Zora a little bit. She wrote me a love note after a week of working with me. Often she would sit at her gypsy fortune teller table and just stare at me all day long. And she would improvise things with me, because we had quite a lot of dialogue. So a few years later, I got a call from my manager, Dorothy Deotis, and she said they want to see you for Star Trek 3. I had no idea what the part was. I didn't know who I would be seeing. I thought it would be a casting director. But when I went into the office, it was Leonard Nimoy by himself, right there, surrounded by all of his Star Trek research. And he was looking at my resume. He had, quote, back then they called it pulling film. They'd go to a different studio and find something you had done, and they would watch it to see what you were like on screen to refresh their memory. And he asked me a series of questions, and then he asked me a big one. He said, "How did you like working with Zora?" And a lot of people were very intimidated by her. The younger people on Midland Heights kept a distance from her because she would look at me like this. "I'm going to call you Danny. How about that? For the whole week, I'm going to call you Danny." I knew what she was doing. I went with it. So I responded to Leonard. I said I loved her. She was wonderful. I learned. We had some great time together. And he said, "You just passed the test, kid, because she's a friend of mine. I know that she can be intimidating to people, and if you can work with Zora, you can work with me." And I said, "Who am I playing?" And he said, "You're playing me at 17 years old." Whoa, okay. So that's how I got the job. And I knew it was a heavy responsibility. It was his first time directing a feature film. I'm not sure if he had directed television. I know he had directed theater. And I felt a responsibility to do a good job for Mr. Nimoy. So that's how I got that job.
Nice. Any questions from the audience?
I'd like to know, because genre filmmaking and TV, it often gets unfairly pigeonholed as camp. But Star Trek has never been camp, as far as I'm concerned. They've had lighthearted episodes, but it's never been a camp franchise or a camp saga. And what I wanted to know from all four of you is, how do you, when you're in a genre project like this, how do you put your faith in the director, and/or how do you know if you're walking that line, the balance being between authenticity of the story in camp? Because when you're doing sci-fi, it's a far more narrow balance beam than, say, another, like Rockford Files, for example. It's not as, I'm making sense. I don't think I am. But what I'm saying is, how do you put your faith in the director that they are not steering you into a performance that will come off as camp when the final product is there? Because I have to believe the tension or the concern when you're doing a project like that is much higher than, say, something else.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Sorry, I shut the room down. Sorry.
Michael, Mariette, Michael.
No, my name really is Zora. And I'm very dangerous. I had no idea what I was doing. What? I mean, to live in a cave, and then to be met, first of all, by these actors who were getting makeup on, and seeing what they seemed to really be like was baffling. It was mind-blowing for me. I mean, you all know about William Shatner, right? I didn't know anything about William Shatner, but I saw that he walked around like he was really important. Okay, I'll take that. That's all right. And then the guy with the ears, like that. And I thought, oh, am I having a relationship with him? Or how does so? The bottom of the story is I ended up stopping Spock, which is, told you that already. Yeah. Married to a Jew, it's a great, to me, Stuck is one of the great, okay. But then,
Can we turn this off?
but for example, Bill, he had an odd attitude toward me. I was kind of much taller than he was, and I tried not to be, because that was really important. But I realized, as he walked toward me, he had very, very, he had short arms. What can I do? He had very short arms, but he was always, hey, how are you? Do you live here? Oh, that's good. And then he walks, and he's doing this, and I thought, wait a minute, how does he look so tall and so big and so macho? And I guess that's a choice, right? No, he had heels that were this. So when he walked, I can't do it. He walked like this. And that's supposed to be sexy, I'm figuring. Oh, I get it. Right. Okay, so he's in this fabulous place, and it's really important to him. I don't know. I think we kind of have to bring our own reality into this, and I didn't know what the reality was. I had no idea.
Yeah.
It was really like being Alice in Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from Connecticut, where none of this stuff happens, whatever that stuff is. I found out later. But yeah, it was, all of these things had an atmosphere that they are all used to. So you walk in and you try to get right. I mean, you try to get a kind of an idea, right, of who they are and what we're supposed to do. And rocks that bounce. It was really like being in another world. With this. I'm very sexy. I wasn't good at that. Anyway. Any other questions?
I can elaborate a little bit, Michael. That's the first time you've asked that. Star Trek was already well established by the time I came on the scene.
Right.
And was a big cult, had a huge cult following.
Right.
When I was in the office, the second time that I went to go and see Mr. Nimoy, he said to me, look, I want to tell you something. He said, Star Trek has made my life. He said, no matter what I do, other roles, when I die, they're going to know me as Spock. I accept it, and I'm grateful for it. As he said, when I got Star Trek, I hadn't had work for a while, so I was grateful to do it. And he worked very hard to create that character, which he did with one word, like 3 episodes in, he finally figured it out. But he
What
said...
does that mean?
Well...
In this?
No, he couldn't figure out how a Vulcan should divorce himself from emotions, but be clinical, but yet still convey his character to the audience. And he said, finally, after flailing around with it during the pilot and a couple of episodes, there was one episode, you guys will know what it is. All he had to do was turn around and look at the screen of whatever was outside the Enterprise, and he had one word, fascinating. And he said the second that he did that, the whole thing just clicked. And often that's what happens when you're doing a role. You narrow it down to one very simple concept, and every time you speak your lines or you have a thought, or we're doing a scene, you keep that in the back of your head so that it goes down.
Still being Spock. Still being Spock. Already wasn't a great kisser.
You know something? I am grateful that I aged into Leonard Nimoy and got to shook with Mariette Hartley eventually later on. That was me. But Leonard told me, he said, it's very important. He said, treat the fans well. He said, there's going to be Star Trek fans all over the world. He said, you'll be doing conventions for the rest of your life, so respect all of them for me on my behalf, since you're playing me as a
On the
young
other
guy."
hand, I was, I don't know when was the last time I saw him. And he didn't know who I was, so I guess he had had it.
I know who you are.
You were a bit younger.
So anyway, I trusted him as a director, and you got to use your imagination. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on. He had a lot of pressure on that set because he was a first-time feature film director. Everybody respected him. But there's just a side thing, not to take over the whole panel.
It's too late.
I'll do it in a very second. My last day there, for example, dovetails into what Mariette was talking about. The door to the stage opened, and like the guys coming out of the Close Encounters spaceship from the flight that disappeared, and they came out in their World War II stuff, I just saw the silhouettes of Shatner, James Doohan, DeForest Kelley, right? And I saw Walter Koenig and George Takei. I just saw their silhouettes as they came walking through the door, and they came through the door in rank. You know what I mean? And so it just sort of happened, you know? The captain, the engineer, the medic, and the 2 navigators, you know? And they've been doing it that way for years. It sort of said something.
What did it say?
It said that it kind of took on a life of its own.
That
And
they're
no matter
stuck.
It's stuck. God, you know? So take it for what it is. You know, these things generate their own
There were reality.
Yeah, sort of.
I'll not use that word, but yeah. Okay.
It's context, right? Okay.
We're almost 60 years into Star Trek fandom now. Next year will mark 60 years, believe it or not. Any dirt? Come on, let's hear. No dirt from you. Anyone?
Well, I kind of already did my Captain.
That was your thing, right? Your Captain Kirk thing.
But one of the interesting things to me, because honest to God, I was really an Earth person. I mean, I did a lot of work as a kid, and I was very kind of solidly in the heart of Connecticut, which land of the alcoholics. Right? So I certainly should have gotten that these kind of things happen. Gene Roddenberry wanted another kind of show like this called, what was the name of it?
Genesis 2.
It was what? Genesis 2.
Genesis 2.
Genesis 2.
Genesis 2. Thank you, I'd forgotten. And he wanted they wanted an Amazon. So I'm tall, I mean, I'm 5'8" and 3/4. But I'm not an Amazon, at least I don't. So the first thing he decided that he wanted to do was put 2 navels on me. Now, it took longer than yours. I'm telling you, it took longer. I had to stand on a kind of a backdrop of something, and then for at least 4 hours, they kept fooling around with my navel. I had, if you come by my place, you'll see my double navel. It's terrific.
If you like double navels.
Yeah, well, I think that he did.
Well, I guess.
I didn't want to ask.
What was the point of having a double name?
2 is always better than 1.
I don't know, and to this day, he didn't know. He just thought that it would be kind of strange and sexy.
Spock liked it.
We have a question over here.
I said there's a story that the censors banned Roddenberry from showing women's navels during Star Trek original series. It says, I'm going to put more in.
If I hadn't said anything, I would have never known them.
That's what I've read and heard.
Yeah.
That he was getting even with the network because they wouldn't let him show navels. And it was supposedly that you had 2 hearts.
Oh, I did, or that my mother?
Your subspecies of human had 2 hearts, and so you had 2 navels.
So no Watchman for me. No. Okay. Oh my God.
She's a Time Lord.
That's exciting.
Now I have a question for you. For those who were on Star Trek when Gene Roddenberry was alive, did you meet him, and what was your experience with him?
Well, I had to come in as the Amazon the next.
So you had multiple occurrences meeting him.
Yeah, and his wife. I never remember her name. Marsu something. What is it? Majel. What kind of a name is that? Majel, and she was on everything. I wonder if it's worth it to me to marry Gene Roddenberry to get. Anyway, never mind. But it was really like a foreign place. You want me to be an Amazon? Okay. 2 navels? Oh, okay. I felt like one of those robots. I think in my life, and also, do you remember that feeling of where am I?
I have to say, I only had the pleasure of just meeting these 2 yesterday, and you're hilarious. I was always a fan, of course, but you're so adorable and so funny, and it's just such a pleasure to be up on this with all of you. And I have a little quick story. You mentioned method actors. I'm sure you're all have heard of method actors.
Zora.
Yeah. Because you were talking about how do you get into character, and I started mainly as a child actress, and I just was brought up learning to take, do what you're told type of thing. So I didn't know about direction and as far as style and all that. And as I mentioned the other day, excuse me for being redundant, but I was very blessed to have been directed by Cecil B. DeMille and George Stevens and Frank Capra. But I was so young, I didn't have a clue as to who they were. It didn't mean anything to me until I got older, and then I really realized how fortunate I was, and I appreciate it now. I didn't understand it back then. So anyway, I just kind of learned to take direction and trust the director, because everybody has a job to do, and I just kind of followed their input and would do what I was told. But a few years ago, I was at a convention, and this young man came up to me. He was adorable, and he was probably in his 20s. Ooh. And he said, I wanted to meet you because you were in Star Trek and Old Yeller and all that. He said, but I'm just curious. He said, because I'm interested in becoming in the film industry. And he said, I noticed like in Old Yeller and most of the roles that you did, you had to cry. And he said, I'm curious, like, how did that come about? I mean, do they make you cry? Do they do something to you? Or do they put stuff in your eyes? Or how do you do it? And I said, well, no, actually, what I try to do is, if there's a scene where you're supposed to cry, obviously there's a reason why you're supposed to be crying. So I just kind of pretend that I'm that person. Like with Old Yeller, when they were shooting Old Yeller, I just immersed myself in that role and pretended that I was really watching Old Yeller being shot. And it made me cry. And he said, oh, so you're one of those Methodist actors. Correct. So I said, I'm Presbyterian.
That's really interesting. Because I had a lot of difficulty learning how to cry.
Until you met me.
No,
and
that's because of laughter.
Right.
But I was in therapy at the time because I felt I kind of needed it, probably working with all these strange people who told me they were real. Anyway, and I realized I was doing a wonderful movie of the week about a young man who had taken his life. Do you remember the name? I don't remember the name. Anyway, and I knew I need to have those chops in me because I was the mother of a child who had taken his own life. And as a kid, I was an actor too. I started when I was 10, and I never could cry. It was really, really weird. And in that instant, with this very important to me then subject that people never talked about, I really had to be there. And I had that in my family, so I thought, well, but it wasn't working. And then I think I either had a dream one night or it came to me in the middle of the scene. There's a camera there, which is kind of okay once you get used to being, in it. Okay, so. But I realized suddenly that my mother was a camera. Now, and I know we're going to talk about this, but she was very critical of me. And I thought, I can't cry because I'm frozen here. And then I realized that that's what it was. That camera for me were my mother's eyes. It fell away, and I had this scene, and I was so in it that I was finally able to relax and say, no, that's not true. This is important, and it happened. It's really a kind of nice movie. Wish I could remember it. Anyway, you reminded me of something.
Any random encounters with Star Trek fans over the years that you'd like to relate?
Star Trek fans?
Or fans of anything that you've done?
I have a story about a fan that came up. He was adorable. And it was a Star Trek convention many years ago. And, when some of the celebrities that come to these shows, they'll have a banner. Sometimes it's hanging, behind them on the wall, if there's a wall, or they'll hang the banner in front of the table. So this young guy came up and he said, I wanted to meet you because I'm Trekkie and I love Star Trek. And I said, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And he said, I noticed you don't have a banner. And I said, no. And he goes, why don't you have a banner? And I said, I don't know, I just never did one. And he goes, are you going to be here tomorrow? And I said, yeah, I'll be here. So the next day he comes up and he's all smiling and he's got this big thing rolled up. And he said, I made you a banner. Wow. And I said, that's so nice. How much do I owe you? And he goes, oh, no, I work at a banner shop. And I'm happy to make it for you. It's my gift to you. And I said, well, that's so sweet. He said, I didn't know, what to put on it. I just put on what I think it should say. So he said, can I put it up behind you? And I said, okay. So he's up in a chair and he's got the tape and he's got this big honking banner. I mean, it was huge.
Honking?
And it said, come meet Beverly Washburn, America's sweetheart. And I went, that is so nice. And I turned and I looked again. He had spelled sweetheart, S-W-E-A-T. America's sweetheart. And so the whole weekend I'm sitting there billed as America's sweetheart. It's a true story.
But you're the best Methodist actress ever.
By the way, I remembered the name. It's called Silence of the Heart.
Oh.
If anybody's interested, you could, see those things now.
I was went with Marguerite to Las Vegas for a Star Trek convention years ago. And I was sitting with her like I do over here and pretend that I'm interested. And this woman walked up and she had a Star Trek book with every character from every episode. It was this thick. And she opens it up and she points like that. I said, what? She said, that's you. I'm in this book. I said, I did one episode. She said, yeah, would you sign this for me? So I said, that would be great. So I took a pen, I signed it, and she said, how much do I owe you? And I said, $1,000. And she said, what? And I said, this is it. This is my one and only signature. I didn't get any money. But
I had, let's see, this is my first Star Trek convention. It was in Vegas 20 years ago. And set up my table, had my pictures there, etc., etc. My wife is sitting here. I look up, and I can now put it together. I think I told you this yesterday. There was a 19-year-old girl with blondish red hair that was long in a very skimpy leather outfit. And she was standing about 20 feet away with her dad, who had kind of a smile on his face. And
he said it was her dad?
No, I later found out that was the father. And Star Trek was her thing. And she kind of glided up to my table. And she looked at me and she said, I'm your other wife. And I looked up and she was really into it, And I looked at my wife and she said, "Oh, she buys a picture. That's cool." And I said, "What character are you?" And she described the character and she kissed Spock and she did all of this type of thing.
She did more than that,
right? And so I did the Pon Far picture with her and all that kind of stuff. And her dad said thank you. And just yesterday I realized who that young lady was cosplaying. It was Mariette's. So now I know Robin, and now I know Mariette, so the circle's complete.
That's fantastic.
Boy, but you have no idea how stupid I felt in that outfit. Oh my God, Tish, Tyne, he was the decorator, he was the designer. And he kept saying, no, people would come in and say, no, that's not short enough, that's not tight enough, that's not, no.
Oh, Bill Tice?
Oh, and that happened when I worked in Peckinpah, too. It was so bizarre when you come again from another planet. And I got the part in Ride the High Country. When I first met Sam, I had to audition, and he was sitting at his desk in Metro, with his legs crossed, cowboy boots, a cowboy hat, and he said, "Are you going to read?" And I said, "Yeah, I haven't got anything for me to read because I don't have." Okay, so he hands it to me, and I read it and he said, "I think I'm in love with you." Now, I don't know if you would. I was 21. And it's an odd feeling when someone... So I got the part. And, he then had to look at what costumes I was going to wear. I know I'm off the track, so I shouldn't be talking about this movie.
No, I love hearing about it.
Anyway, he decided I didn't have any breasts. And I had already been known as having kind of a flat chest. So I said, oh, okay, so we went to Western costume. Sam was with me. This is a big director at that point. and he sat there next to me, and he would say to the guy who was doing the costume, it's a Western costume, we want. I had no idea what they were talking about. And he said, so go ahead, and then bring her with you, and then I'll tell you if it's enough. So what I did, I went to the costume place right there, and before I knew it, this is an honest to God truth, I was out to here. But it was never enough for Sam to go, no, go more. And that had never happened to me before, right? And I did the movie, I was almost, looked like Bill Shatner. You know, I was like this, walking like this. Huge pressure. What did I do? I have to ride horses, I have to cook a lot of meals, I have to do like this. I had never done it in my life before. And to me, that's the insanity and the wonder of the business that we're in. You're suddenly somebody else like that, and do it. Okay.
Question back here?
Yeah, Jerry, as both a director and an actor, I'm very curious to find out what it's like, because you have so much directing experience and acting experience, when you have to be in a project or a role and be directed by someone that maybe you think isn't doing a great job. How do you mitigate?
Wait a minute, how much time do you have?
How do you mitigate that in your mind in that moment? Like, how do you get through that? I mean, it's got to be infuriating.
It's I've only had that happen like twice. One was a play that I did with Marguerite. And the guy, the director, whose name escaped,
right?
He kept walking up to me and saying, "No, you're unfocused." I said, "Okay, thank you." And he kept at me for 2 days, and finally he gives me 2 marbles, and he says, "Do this with the marbles while you're doing the scene." I said, "So we're going to now switch to the K Mutiny?"
Right.
It was just awful. Finally, I think I don't know if you remember, but I think I said something that I wasn't going to take it anymore. I'm going to open the window and shout, "I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore." That was what. That was, and I wrote a play that we did together with a bunch of lovely people. And the director, and we're on stage, we're all actors, it's actors within actors. And I'm on the stage, I'm waiting for my cue, right? And I'm doing a crossword puzzle. And the director stopped, and what did he say? He said, "I can't have you up there, I don't know what you're doing. Are you learning your lines?" I said, "No, I'm doing a crossword puzzle because I'm an actor waiting for an entrance in a rehearsal, and I'm bored." He said, I can't have you doing that." I said, "Something about crossword puzzles? Or what would you like me to do?" And it was really tough because, first of all, he didn't want me in the play because I had written it. He said, "I wanted you sitting out here with me, helping me." And I said, I can help you from up here. So, you got to kind of roll with it. And the third time wasn't a director, it was dear Ruth Gordon, who, she does the mime, I do the narration.
Well, I worked with her. So.
Yeah. And I got a call, "Would you like to go and work for Garson Kanin?" And I said to the agent, "No." I said, "Where do I go and when?" I went, it turned out to be an understudy for 3 parts in a play. But Kanan was directing. And I went and I read. He hired me immediately. And he said, "Sit here with me. Here's the script. Mark it up as you're going because I have to now mark blocking for all 3 characters." And Ruth comes out, and we're in rehearsal, we're in the theater. Ruth comes out, and she says, "Gar, come down." And she whispers to him, and he comes back, sits down next to me, "Sweetheart." And he said, "Could you move your right in Ruth's eye line?" Empty theater. Empty theater. I said, oh, sure, where should I go? He said, just... So I sat over, and I'm copying down the block, and Ruth walks out, same thing happens again. And I move again. And Garson says, you know what? Maybe if you sit in the wings, you'll be out of her. I said, okay, great. And they give me a chair, and I'm sitting in the wings, writing the blocking down. She comes on, and we make immediate eye contact. And I'm sitting in the wings. And she says, Gar. And he said, what is it, Ruth? He said, well, he can't sit there. So I said, I have 3 parts to learn in a week. Where would you like me to sit? Outside on 54th Street? Just like that. And she backed off. Wow. Yeah.
So, and she wasn't easy to work with, I'll tell you.
No, she wasn't. That's all I got.
Question back here?
Thank you all for doing the panel. They've been delightful and entertaining. Wondering if next week, if you're open to, you'll be in my production of Who's Stupid Whom.
He wonders if you'll be in his production next week of Who's Stuffing Whom.
I never knew.
Well, like I said, we're nearly 60 years of Star Trek. When we reflect on this phenomena, and knowing that each of you had a role in it, how does it make you feel? What do you think about this epic story that continues to grow, and the fandom that grows around it?
You mean our particular episode that we did?
No, how do you, when you look back at it now, knowing that you are part of this phenomenon?
I never thought about it that way, did you?
Well, I can say I feel sheer gratitude, actually, because I had no idea, 59 years ago or whatever it was, that I would be part, it was a small part, but just to be a part of such an iconic, well-received, loved show that I got to go to Italy last year for a Star Trek convention. And I had
How come you get to do that? Mention us next time.
I will. It was good. But I was just so, I could not believe how well received and how loved and how people embrace Star Trek. And there were all these Italians, obviously, and it was a wonderful experience. And the fact that they would remember me when I just did one little episode, and they were so welcoming and warm, and how much they loved and embraced Star Trek. And so I look back and I just feel very fortunate, and I'm just filled with gratitude.
Same goes for me. Same thing, I've gotten to travel a little bit. They brought me over to England a few years ago. But in that first meeting with Leonard, he imparted how important it was to him, and told me to take it as seriously as he did. So that's what I've done this whole time.
Jesus.
My goodness, it's 42 years later, right? And I'm sitting here talking to you guys. So I'm grateful and thank you very much.
I have a quickie. My son, who was around 6, is watching Star Trek. We're in New York, living in New York. And the episode, and I'm inside, and I walked in and I said, did you enjoy that? He said, I did. I especially liked Leonard Nimoy. He says, he's the one with, I said, yeah. So I never, of course, corrected him. But at 6, he was like into it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I don't know if you know Miss Hartley, but your character is expanded upon in the books.
Darn it, I found it.
Look at him. You got a fan holding up the books.
I was interested in actually trying to write something like that, and I'm wondering why you don't pick up on this character, which is, to me, she was really, really interesting. And stuck, she was in a cave now, and she couldn't get out, and so I'd never see her again. But I thought it would be wonderful, because there have been Star Trek movies, that she would come in with a child. And apparently that's in one of them.
Yeah, both of them.
Two kids.
2 books.
No, not 2.
Yeah,
Just
2
one.
books.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I found it all fascinating, really fascinating, and I guess I was really glad to. I knew that it was a part of my growth as I guess a human being or an actor, but it's very, very interesting, especially. Trying to make it, right, when I was doing the morning program, I had to interview this guy. And in where was it? It was down in
I think that's
Nashville.
all burned in our brains now. From this point forward, I view this as a dinosaur, a Tyrannosaurus Rex,
Yeah.
but you don't view it as a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You view it as...
No, it's a very special way of doing it.
Okay.
I just want to be sure that he's not around when I do it. And I was taller than him. I was at least a foot and a half taller. That's not unusual. This one, I wrote down the kind of man that I want. Oh, sorry. But this is. Has anybody seen our movie?
Yes,
We
yes.
did? Okay. And it's a true. I think I put it in the movie. It was kind of. The truth is how we met. Was I was trying to be I studying to be a practitioner. There's so many words that begin with P. So I was taking classes about how to become a practitioner, so that I could help people, blah, blah, blah. And the guy was a wonderful, wonderful minister and teacher. He said, okay, now for your final, you have to write why you want to be married again. And I said, I don't. I never want to get married again. It's a terrible divorce. This is not with you. And
Not yet.
that's right. That's right. I continue telling the
Right,
story. Yeah, okay.
right.
So be warned. And anyway, I was walking around the house. I knew I had to because I was going to graduate. I said, what the hell? What the hell? What do I want from a man now? That I was 65 when I was in the classroom. And I said, what the hell do I want? No, I don't want. And suddenly one day, it said, sense of humor. I thought, wow, at my age, that would be lucky to find. I would really be lucky to find that. Hot and heavy and terrific in the set. It was not as interesting as humor, I think. Capable of giving and receiving love, okay, but I forgot height. And this is all true. I absolutely forgot height. And when I finally met this man, I could barely see him. Oh, it was like coming into a SAG board. This is complimentary.
Oh. How would I know?
Anyway, I was kind of like coming in there, and because I was a member of I had to vote and do all kinds of stuff. And about where you were. What's your name again?
Me?
Yeah.
Michael, like everybody else in my
Michael.
generation.
I sat and I kind of saw this guy, and I thought what? He had white hair that was like all kind of curly. And then I saw his eyes. And I thought, oh, okay. And then we ate dinner together around, and we've been together since. And I think the humor has been so loving and so necessary, certainly in my life, that is pretty miraculous.
How long have you been together?
2 years. No. 2 minutes. No, it's 23 years now. And it's all true. I mean, but when you're 21 or 22 or 19, whatever, that's not what you'd ask for, right? Sense of humor, who cares? It's really important.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to A round of applause for Jerry Sroka, Washburn, Hartley, and Steve Manley. All right, now this is the money shot. If you have cameras, now's the time. Everybody's, no one's drinking water. Now's the time to take the perfect photos.
I've got rid of my gum.
Yeah, just a table there.
Where? Here?
Stick it on your feet.
No.
Okay.
Michael, you have a thought?
Yeah, just one last thought. For each one of you, real quick lightning round, one-word answer.
Okay.
All of you've been in film and television. What do you prefer working on? Film or television? And I don't mean the paycheck.
Theater.
Paycheck's always great.
Theater.
Theater, yeah,
Oh,
it's a
theater.
common, yeah, it's a common answer.
Both.
Film, theater,
Both.
both?
All three.
All three.
We are Star Pod Trek, my wife and I. If you're thinking about listening to us, we're on all your podcast apps. We talk about Starlog Magazine, each and every issue, starting with 1976, we're up to 1985. Starlog was our internet, so look for Star Pod Trek. We're also part of the Star Trek fan club, Starfleet Command. There's going to be the website address. We're part of the USS Athena. We have monthly Zoom meetings as well as real-life meetups and dinners. Look for us online. We look forward to seeing you at the next Monsterama.